Hello, welcome to the Cup Night channel. My name is Shane, and I got another message today, and look, I got a new mic, and I think it sounds pretty good. Hopefully I've got the settings dialed in pretty well so that, the voice, the gain isn't too high and doesn't sound all crackly. I think it's pretty good, but if it's not, bear with me, I'm figuring it out. It'll get better as we go along. So, that being said, today I've got quite a bit planned for this message. I've got it all written out so that it actually has a flow this time. So I'm going to be following my little journal here and all of my notes. And after I walk through this message that I was given, through meditation, through connecting with Spirit, Source, God, whatever you want to call it, universe. I have a couple other things. There's 2 books I want to read from. Both of these came from the house that my boyfriend and I have been working on here in Colorado. And then I'll also pull some tarot cards and some wild unknown archetypes to enhance the message, see what else wants to come through. So please stick through the beginning part of the video because the tarot reading and the archetypes are going to be directly related to this message. And if I'm going too slow, you can always speed up the video, do 1.5x, 2x, whatever. Does not offend me. I do it with videos that I watch. It's very useful. It saves a lot of time and you still get the content that you're looking for. So anyway, on to the message. Today, I want to talk about how we, humans, are like the moon and the implications of such a thought. So, the first thing I want to talk about is how we are like the moon. I've got 3 major points here, and the first one I want to talk about is how the moon revolves around the earth, and our lives revolve around the earth. The cycles of our lives revolve around the earth, just like the cycles of the moon revolve around the earth. The moon is esoterically associated with our emotions and spirituality. It's associated with water, which is all elements are very spiritual, but water is like, I don't know. It might just be my lens of how I view water and its connection to the moon, but it is like extra spiritual for me. I connect really heavily with water. I was born in a town near water, Panama City, Florida. So, I grew up near the Gulf. And it was beautiful. They would always say we had the most beautiful beaches in the world. I took that for granted. I didn't even realize that until I was much older. And then, I'd hear people say that and I'd be like, really? They are beautiful. I always thought they were, but I never realized they were so highly valued by people from around the world. So, yeah, we go through cycles. Various cycles, different stages of our lives, tiny cycles, large cycles, massive cycles, our entire, from birth to death cycle, the biggest one that we experience as, in this human form, very heavily correlated with the cycles of the moon. And the moon and us are tied to the earth. We both spend our cycles, we play them out around the earth, right? So just in that alone, there's a lot to think about. So I encourage you to really reflect on what that means. Another aspect of the moon and humans that we share in common, we reflect, we look back on things. And that's my point number 2 here about how we are like the moon. We receive and reflect the light of the sun. The moon, it's very obvious that, we have full moons, we have half moons, we have quarter moons, we have waxing and waning phases, we have new moons where there's no light at all. Our lives are very much like that. We go through these cycles of like growing and learning, and then we come to a culmination point, the full moon, where we are fully expressing everything that we have learned and grown into. And then we start the descending phase, the waning phase. We start maybe disseminating our knowledge of those experiences to others. We start ending that cycle until we get back to the new moon, where it's the beginning. There's no light. We're kind of in the dark. We don't know what's coming next, but it's the start of whatever is coming next. So, in that way, we are also like the moon. The third point I want to make is we, like the moon, influence our environment. The moon has a gravitational effect on the earth, especially on water, the ocean, the tides, but also our bodies, the water inside of us. And just its proximity to the earth in general has effects that we're probably not even aware of yet scientifically. But yeah, it's the same for us. We, when we interact with each other, just like I am doing with you now watching this video, influence each other. What I am talking about is influencing you. And if you're listening, then you are choosing to be influenced by it, right? My energy is affecting you. It's having an impact on you. Whether you think it's big or small, or maybe even not at all, you might be like, this ain't hitting, like you might have already turned the video off by now, some of you. Who knows? I don't know. It's not up for me to decide. We all have free will. We all can do what we want. But I do believe that we are all influenced more than we realize by people around us, even just people you pass on the street. Me, I am, I think, a pretty highly sensitive person, so even just walking near somebody on the street, I get this like anxiety, right? And it's not like a, oh my God, they're gonna hurt me kind of anxiety. It's like a sense. I can feel something coming from them, and it's like entering my space. It's entering my field, and it affects me like instantly. And I don't even know this person at all. You know what I mean? Never seen them before in my life, but just walking by them, and it's like this profound experience that is so mysterious, just like the moon. The moon is so mysterious. In fact, that's what it's known for in the tarot. It's kind of like the Valley of Shadows. It's the unknown, often associated with fear and anxiety, because the unknown is often what instills that sense of fear and anxiety in us as humans, which is kind of funny to think about how, this video is about us being like the moon, but then also these qualities of the moon are so like paralyzing to us in some ways. It's heavy, like the unknown, the not knowing what is going to happen whenever you do something. It gives you these like sensations in your body and in your mind and just everywhere, all up and down the spectrum of being. It has a very tangible effect. So in that way, we as people are like the moon. We influence each other. Some more than others, probably, but I like to believe that, everyone is somewhat influenced, even just by walking past a stranger on the street. Some people might not be as aware of it as others, but I do believe it has an impact. And, you can dig layers and layers and layers down into anything. Everything is a rabbit hole if you decide to treat it as such. But yeah, So I think I've made my point here on how we are like the moon. The next major topic I want to dive into is about the sun, and how the sun is like the truth, which, duh, that's probably the most obvious comparison you can make about the sun. Who hasn't realized or used that analogy, that like the blinding light of the truth, you know what I mean? But there's a reason why it is so common, and it's because there's truth to it, literally, So the first point I want to make about the sun being like the truth is that, it is not advised for you to look directly into the sun, because it can hurt you. It can damage your vision, you know what I mean? Sorry, hopefully it is kind of windy out here, and it's actually pretty cold because it rained and hailed yesterday, and I did not bring a jacket, so I'm kind of like shivering out here, so bear with me. Should have prepared better for doing this outdoors. But anyway, you can't look directly at the sun, right? Now, there are periods of time where it is okay, like early in the morning when the sun is first rising, and late when the sun is setting. It's okay to look at the sun because the light is filtered by our atmosphere. It's not as intense, and it won't hurt you. So there are certain conditions when it is okay to look at the sun, but when it is shining bright and it's full glory, midday, you don't want to look directly at the sun because it will hurt you. It will possibly destroy parts of you. And that is kind of like the truth, right? We don't necessarily fully comprehend the truth of anything. We get pieces and parts of it. But to fully understand something, I think, that would be the annihilation of our being. To fully comprehend the truth in all of its glory, I think you would not be able to exist in such a human form. And, I could be wrong about that, but this is just an inclination that I have, a feeling that I have, that if you were so aligned with the absolute truth, if there even is such a thing, I don't think that you could exist in such a state as a human. We take in so much information all of the time that we're not aware of for our own benefit, because it would be overwhelming for our minds to try to hold all of that information and still function and do all of the things that we need to do as humans. We have filters. Our brains are filters. It's taking all of these sensory perceptions around us and reducing them to a stream that we can handle. It's funny. And I didn't include this in my notes, but the brain as a funnel, as a filter, it's funny because I have a diagram here I'm going to show you later between the sun and the moon with a funnel in between them, a filter. There's another level to that apparently that I just picked up on. But anyway, second point about the sun being like the truth. You feel it. You feel the light of the sun. It warms your skin. When it's blocked, you don't. You know what I mean? You get cold like I am right now. The sun is not out right now. It's very cloudy. It's windy. It feels like it's about to rain. I hear some thunder in the distance. Hopefully I can get through this message before that happens. But it's warming. You can tell, like when you hear the truth, it's not always pleasant, but you get this sensation inside of you that is like it's like a knowing. It's like you just know. You connect with it, right? But it can also burn you, the sun, and the truth. If you're not ready to hear something, it can be hard to accept it. If you spend too much time in the presence of such a powerful force, it can kind of destroy you, right? It will burn your skin, that skin will die, and it will fall off of your body. It will peel off of you. You could even potentially get cancer from it, skin cancer. So there's a balance there, right? You can't just be fully exposed to the truth all of the time. There's a cycle, like the moon. The moon is not fully exposed to the sun all the time. It is sometimes protected by the earth. It goes behind the earth, with the sun being on the other side, for a reprieve, for rest, right? And that is what the new moon is about. It's like the ending of what was before a period of rest, of receptivity, of just taking it easy and then starting the next cycle. And the same thing is true for humans and how we relate to truth. We cannot just take in all of the truth at once. It would destroy you. You would go insane. It's impossible. There is a rhythm to it. There's a period of understanding, learning, growing, realization, full moon, and then a period of letting go, waning, of falling into a more restful period, a reprieve from such intense energy. You have to do the cycles, right? It's there for a reason. It exists for a reason. It is a truth. It is part of being human. You can't just dive headfirst into mastering something. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just like immediately decide like, oh, I want to be a writer, and then you're the best writer there ever was. No. You go through cycles of learning, growing, you realize the lesson, and then you start moving on to the next one. You rest, you let go of what no longer is needed, and then you prepare yourself for the next set of lessons that you need to learn until you reach that full moon period again, and so on and so on. There's this relationship to truth, or the sun, that is cyclical. It doesn't happen all at once. And for those who have experienced really intense psychedelic trips, where you have been exposed to too much truth all at once, those who have had such experiences know what I'm talking about. It's too much. It can damage you severely. I have had a few psychedelic experiences where it was so much revealed to me all in one instant that I couldn't handle it. And it actually had a really painful effect on my well-being, on my my mental health. You know what I mean? It took me a long time to come back from that. Do I regret those experiences? No, because I feel like they have shaped me into who I am today. But it was a very painful lesson that I had to learn, and now I'm just now realizing it, that like maybe that was the point of it, was, maybe I had to go through that and so I could talk about it and warn others that like, you don't have to experience something like that, and you don't necessarily want to. I can't speak for everyone. You do you. You are the creator of your own life, so you have the final say. You have the power, but there's a reason why we get warnings, right? If you don't have to go through something, like, for instance, this is an extreme example, but it's the first thing that came to my head. If you don't have to go through being a heroin addict, don't. I think any recovering heroin addict would agree with that statement. You don't have to go through that. You probably don't want to, Everyone has their own journey. I'm not saying that it's not something that wasn't meant for, or that some people had to go through. I don't know. I am not all-knowing. I am but this version of spirit known as Shane. This is the filter that I am currently inhabiting, right? These are the set of experiences that I have had. I was never addicted to heroin. So, anyway, just a very extreme example for you. So, third point about the sun being like the truth. And I kind of touched on this in the second point, but I wanted to give it its own bullet point because there's more to it. It can destroy you. The sun can destroy you. It is so powerful. Like, you can't, it's like the story of Icarus, right? You get too close to the sun, your wings, whatever was making you fly, they're made of wax, they melt, and you hurtle back toward the earth, you descend. You got too close to the truth, and you weren't ready for it. Your wings were made of wax. They weren't built to handle such things. So you descend. And God, what a perfect analogy for what I was just talking about with my intense psychedelic experiences. It's like that, We get so ahead of ourselves, as humans. And this is maybe a way that we are not like the moon, because the moon is very stable in its cycle. All right, and we're back. So my SD card on the camera was full, and it stopped recording. And right on time, because the rain was rolling in, it was starting to sprinkle, and so I had just enough time to pack everything up and get it in the truck before it started actually raining over there. So anyway, here I am in a room now, and we'll pick up where I left off. So I think what I was saying before is how we are a way in which we are not like the moon. And honestly, I reviewed the footage I had just so I could pick up where I left off, and now I can't remember what I was saying and how we are not like the moon. But hopefully you got the point. It's funny too, because one of the things I wrote down in my meditation that was coming through was the moon as an ancestral database of memories. Kind of a sci-fi concept that had come through, but there's something to that. There's definitely a relationship between the moon and the past, and ancient legacy. Especially, since the moon has seen all of human development. It's been with us. It was there before us. And that calls into question, well, how long has humanity been here, really? Is there an ancient past? I don't know. Do you subscribe to those theories? The Atlanteans and such things, the Lemurians. I think it's interesting. I'm excited to see if... I haven't really followed up on it lately, but there was that whole development where they were saying they detected these large chambers underneath the Great Pyramid. That is, some people think is a library containing ancient knowledge about the origins of humanity and beings of our caliber, how long we've been around, what secrets we used to have. I need to follow up on that. Some people were saying it was a hoax. I don't know. Anyway, back to the message. So yeah, point number 3 about the sun being like the truth. It can destroy you. The sun can destroy you. Go near the sun, you will die. Get too close without, proper protections, which I don't think we have anything that can get very close to the sun, technologically speaking, scientifically speaking, at this point in human history. So yeah, the truth can destroy you. Metaphysically speaking, that might be a good thing sometimes, because, like the cliche saying goes, the truth will set you free. It will set you free from old identities and ways of being and old beliefs, limiting beliefs. Yeah, death is a good thing. We really should be dying all the time. I mean, we are dying all the time physically. Our cells, they are constantly dying off and being replaced. So if that's happening on a physical level, are you allowing it to happen on a mental level as well? Are you allowing your beliefs to be updated, to change and transform spiritually? Are you, letting go of things that no longer work for you? Embracing the new? Embracing what is instead of clinging to what was? Allowing the cycles to happen. Yeah. This idea of, this made me think of the Goldilocks zone, scientific concept of like the Earth is in, the perfect distance away from the sun, so that water is able to exist on Earth, which in turn allows life to exist. Another connection there to the moon with the water, enabling life. Water has its own cycles too, where it, evaporates, goes into the atmosphere, is rained back down onto the earth, falls down as snow on mountaintops, melts, creates streams and rivers that flow back to the ocean, and then repeat. But, yeah, this idea of there being, kind of the ideal zone away from the sun, or metaphorically speaking, the truth. There's this place, this balanced spot, which is ideal for us, for life as we know it to exist. Not too close, not too far away. So really this message is all about balance. Which I think you'll find a lot of spiritual concepts are deeply tied to balance, the balance of light and dark, of knowing and not knowing, and the interplay between those two. All right. So now I want to talk about the dynamics between the truth and us, or the dynamics between, metaphorically speaking, the sun and the moon. And the first point I have here is we get these signals. A signal from the past, what has already happened, and a signal from the future, what is coming in, what is yet to be. And between these two signals colliding with each other, there's this interference pattern. And I believe that that is where we are, the present moment. It's the point between the future and the past. So, what is the past and the future to you? Because for everyone it's kind of different, right? We all have our own memories and ideals, memories of the past, ideals of the future. And when you boil those down, they're really just beliefs. So, the way I see it, you're kind of getting these two signals, your beliefs about the past and your beliefs about the future. And the intersection of those two is what creates you as you are now. Another way to look at this through the lens of like psychoanalysis is the past being your shadow and the future being the light which creates that shadow. Because we're constantly moving into the future and leaving behind the past. We're constantly moving forward, even when we're sitting still, even if you're meditating, time is still moving. Maybe at different rates, depending on how you're perceiving it. But there's always this projection of ourselves into the next moment occurring. And there's always this walking away from what was occurring simultaneously. This is getting kind of in the realm of, into like, quantum physics, the idea of the superposition, being two things at once, simultaneously, being the future and the past, simultaneously. So, if you, suspend your doubts, suspend your disbelief about what I'm saying, if you have any, and just think if the past and the future are just beliefs that you hold about such things, then they're malleable. You can change them because you can change your beliefs. So, this leads me to my final point of this message before I'll get into the books and the tarot. This is the diagram that I had come up with relating to this concept. And it's very simple. But you can see here, got the sun, the moon, and then the past and the future. And then you can see there's this transfer happening from the sun down to the moon. The moon is receiving the light of the sun. So, as I was saying earlier, truth, us. And there's even a release of energy from us down below. You could think of this being released to the earth, to our environment around us, what we give off from what we have received. And then there's kind of this funnel being created here, which is pinched between our beliefs about the past and our beliefs about the future. And what I was picking up on is that these two things create this funnel which allow us to receive certain amounts of truth. So, if you have very constricting beliefs about what your future can be, or about what your past was, you essentially are blocking out your ability to receive truth. And if you can change your beliefs about the past and the future, then you can increase the amount of truth that you can receive. And so, my final thought on this is we are like the moon. And the moon is really good at reflecting. And to bring ourselves into a state of balance between light and dark, between past and future, between light and shadow, however you want to frame it, whatever works for you. We have to reflect. We have to receive, and then we have to give. And then we have to think about that process and apply the insights that we get from that process of reflection. Because you can do all the thinking you want, but it doesn't really help unless you embody it, unless you start living it, unless you implement those truths that you've been given. Because otherwise you're just holding on to them. And I actually wrote this down in my journal, but gross factor warning. Imagine never taking a poop. Imagine just being full of shit always. That would suck. It would hurt. It would kill you. Yeah, you gotta release. You have to release. You take things on and then you let them go. And there's a timing, there's a rhythm to it, a cycle. So this kind of ties into this idea of toxicity, and it's funny because in my meditation I was hearing the song Toxicity by System of a Down, and I was like, why is this song popping into my head right now? What is going on? And there's this line in the chorus where he says, somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep. And that's the one that was really standing out to me, especially relating to the other, downloads I was having through the meditation. So yeah, in the moon, it's intimately tied to the idea of sleep and silence and reflection. And I think this has to do with, how we receive truth. Because it's not always a mental thing. You don't just it's not like I'm just hearing, sometimes I do hear words and things in my meditation in songs that are relevant. But more so, it's often just a feeling or an image that I'll see in my mind's eye. But a lot of times, usually it's just a feeling that then blossoms in my mind as words and images and songs and ideas. So you have to allow space. You have to allow that new moon period of rest. Also, I did watch in the beginning part of the video, I had said the new moon period was when the earth was on the other side, or the moon was on the other side of the earth and the sun. That's not correct. I had it backwards. I used to have dyslexia when I was a kid. I took some special classes for it, and it still creeps up on me every once in a while, but it's the other way. The new moon happens when the moon is between the sun and the earth, because you can't see it because it's being blocked out by the light of the sun. And then full moons are when the moon is opposite and the earth is in the middle. So the sun, earth, moon, that's full moon. Just wanted to clarify that. Not really relevant to what I was saying. Maybe it is. Maybe you'll glean something from that I'm not picking up on right now. But yeah, so somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep. That's where we get the truth. That's where we pick up on it. We feel it in the quiet moments. I think that's the best way to digest it. Not when it's being screamed at you. Nobody likes that. That's a good way to reject something. It's not a good way to give information, right? And if the universe is all-knowing, if spirit, whatever you want to refer to it as, is all-knowing and the ultimate intelligence, then it would know that in order for humans to accept truth, it would need to be silent. Not silent, but quiet. Subtle. Not alarming. Not activating our defense mechanisms. Yeah. And then also the outro, I'd never realized this I haven't listened to this song in a while, Toxicity, but it's such a bop. I love it. Oh my God. But the outro, I didn't realize it, but it says, "When I become the sun, I shone life into the man's hearts. When I became the sun, I shone life into the man's heart." So that's an interesting idea in and of itself, that like when we embody the truths that we have learned, it's like, you know, we become like the sun. We radiate our truths, and it's like a full moon. The moon becomes like the sun when it's full. It allows us to see more. So yeah, I picked up on that. Another thing that came to mind, another song, and this one's a little more less well known, but the song is "Glass in the Trees" by Dead Poetic. Still a band that I love to go back and listen to, but one that I had found in, me and my cousins discovered them in middle school, and they've stood the test of time. Yeah, and their lyrics still pop into my head all the time. They're so relevant. But there's a line in this song, and I encourage you to go listen to it and read the lyrics. But it says, it's kind of like the culmination of the song. It says, "And I deserve every bit because I'm not spiritual yet. I've just been reading the lines they gave me from the pulpit." And those lines have always stuck with me, but like even now, as I have like kind of stepped into this more spiritual side of myself, they're especially resonant because I grew up going to church of the Pentecostal flavor, so I was always kind of turned off by the like showboating of it, because if you've ever been to a Pentecostal church service, they do the whole like speaking in tongues thing, and they like to be energetic, and the preachers like to do the whole fire brimstone style preaching, and it's very in your face, and for me, it kind of turned me off to spirituality for a large portion of my life. And I think that's why this song popped into my head, because it's like the whole idea of people just like feeding you lines of spiritually related topics, but it's like you're not sure how to reflect on them or how they really relate to your life. So you just kind of discard them. You're not really being spiritual about it. You're not finding meaning in it. You're kind of just like consuming it and then not thinking about it. And I do think there's an interesting level there too, because it's like, I do think there is a lot of wisdom in the Bible. And when I was like kind of made to read the Bible when I was younger, I always just was like kind of reading it, not really, analyzing it or thinking about how it relates to my life or what it could mean. And now all these years later, I'm remembering those things that I had read. It's like they're coming up out of my subconscious, and now they're relevant. So it's like, even though I wasn't viewing them in a spiritual lens back then, now I am, and they are relevant, and I do believe there is wisdom there and lessons to be learned from the stories and the images and the archetypes found in such texts, not even just the Bible, but like other religious texts. So yeah, I have this book. It's just a black book. It was in a box in this room that I'm in, and I walked over to it this morning, and it stood out to me because it's just all black and very unassuming, but I was feeling pulled to it, and it actually has a really interesting note at the beginning that was so relevant to this message, I think. But the book is Twilight for the Gods by Ernest Gann. I've never read this. I'd never heard of it. I just found it in that house. And it was published in 1956. But I want to read you this kind of like preface it has in the beginning here. It's very short. At the top it says, "Notations found on the interface of Captain Bell's journal. ... And so, by God, I wish I could meet myself and be introduced as a perfect stranger might, for then I could maybe judge my being, my soul, if that thing exists, and my opinions. Who in the world would not treasure and at the same time fear such a meeting? Stupid as I am, it seems to me it would be the greatest adventure of all, for aren't we, if honest, vastly concerned with ourselves?" Reflection. "And when you start doubting, like me now, during these times, how can you tell right from wrong? What kind of a man could have the nerve to judge his fellow human beings? Who has the nerve to set himself up as God? I find the exploration of others a discouraging job, and in seeking myself, an even greater confusion of parts. Now it seems to me that no person is of one dimension, neither white nor black, evil or good. It seems to me they are like a ship, of depth and beam and frequently unpredictable behavior. But who really knows?" Yeah, I love that. Like, that whole passage is just like moon to me. It's just like screaming, moon energy. Very reflective and kind of seeing yourself in others and checking your ego. I love it. All right, and then I have this other book that I'm just going to kind of divinate with. I haven't picked anything out of this book. I'm just going to open to a random page and see if there's anything resonant there. This one is published by the National Geographic Society, and it's Great Religions of the World. I don't know if you can see that. And it has this very cool, engraving on the book. There was a cover, but it was really nasty, so I just threw the cover away because I thought this part of it looked cooler anyway. And the inside is very awesome as well, this purple, I don't even know what you would call it really, but it's just wild looking. I love it. Let's see. I always like to see when they were published. This one was published in 1971. So I'm going to flip somewhere near the middle end of the book, and right there. Whoa. Okay. There's a lot on this page. It's at the top. It says the prayer book, and it looks like, it looks like a religious text. Very cool. I'm just going to, since there's a lot of information here, I'm going to stare at the camera and drop my finger somewhere on the right page and read this. Okay. "Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor about your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add 1 cubit to his span of life? Consider the lilies on the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O men of little faith? Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be yours as well." Yeah, so this is from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew's Gospel focusing on Jesus' teaching. Most famous of his discourses is the Sermon on the Mount. In its Beatitudes passage, Jesus promises God's reward for those who live by his lessons. Other sections urge rejection of worldly standards and condemn hypocrisy. Yeah, there's one more little section to this that I want to read, because it starts with, "Judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. Why do you see the speck in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take that speck out of your eye, when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So once again, ego check, don't be judgmental, self-reflect. That is the way. Yeah, I love it. And like I was just saying, there's tons of wisdom in the Bible, especially in Jesus's teachings. And it's all about self-improvement. It's all about improving yourself and learning to love yourself more so that you can love others more. Because you can't really love others if you don't love yourself. Yeah. So, in that regard, it's okay to be a little selfish, a little self-indulged, as long as you're doing it out of love. Because the more you love yourself, the more you can love others. All right, let's pull some tarot cards, see what comes out. I wasn't meaning for this video to be this long, but I really like this message. Okay. Oh, my toes, they're all cramped up. I'm kind of like kneeling over here. Ooh, okay. Bear with me while I do the shuffling here. Okay. So, just gonna kind of shuffle, see if anything wants to pop out immediately. Oh, this card is kind of like sticking up here, so I'm gonna take that one. King of Wands. Yeah. So we've got the element of fire here, which makes me think of the sun. And kings, also heavily related to solar symbolism. And there's, if you look closely at his throne back here, there's a lion, image of a lion and salamanders on there. What I've always liked about this card is, if you look at the throne, like the bottom where his feet are, it looks like the earth is like moving underneath him. Like he's just like steering this solid piece of concrete and throne just by sitting there with his like wand touching the earth, like causing things to like move to him. It's like he's like commanding, you know, the earth to move underneath him. And this card is very much about creative energy, which has been, if you've watched any of my other videos lately, that has been coming through heavily lately. Which I have been working on a creative video project that has like a bunch of footage that I've shot mixed in with some poetry, tarot, and a little bit of like spoken word and sing-songy type elements. And I'm planning on posting that on the 26th. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested. But yeah, I think this is just coming out to remind of confidence, just like that Bible verse in the Nat Geo book was saying, like, you don't have to be anxious about the future or the unknown, because you'll be fine if you just tap in to your inner kingdom. You find out who you really are, step into your own authority. That's what this card is saying. Stepping into your own power and making the earth move beneath you, you know, bringing what you desire to you by being so fully yourself. You know, shining your light. We are like the moon, but we are also like the sun. We can also be like the sun. Yeah, I love that. Thank you, King of Wands, for giving us that little bit. See if anything else wants to come out. Alright, I'm going to shuffle it one more time and cut it, and then I'll just pick the top card. Wow, it's funny, I make a video about the moon, and guess what wants to come out? The sun. Yeah. So, I think this is just, it's kind of asking me to put a positive spin on this video to close it out. Like, yes, we are like the moon, but yes, we are also like the sun. We are paradoxes. We are all and everything. And, you know, if you prefer to see yourself like the moon, like me, I resonate heavily with the moon, then reflect the light of the sun. You know, receive the light of the sun. Let it, you know, pierce you to the depths of your being, and then integrate that truth, and then shine it back out to the world. That old gospel song, you know, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I love that song. It's a really positive, uplifting song, and it's what this whole video is about. Yeah, let your light shine. Do it. Fun fact about me, my papa on my mom's side was an evangelist, and I used to travel around with him sometimes, go to different churches, and he would occasionally have me go up on stage and sing that song. This little light of mine. And I always had a great time doing it as a kid. You know, it was so fun to just do karaoke, essentially, for this whole congregation that was very into, you know, everybody be standing up, clapping, dancing, singing along. It was great. So there's light and dark to everything. I have a lot of fond memories of the church, and various experiences I had there. It's not all bad. It's a mixed bag, much like a lot of things in life. Okay. So I'm feeling that that's it. Like, that's all I got. I was going to pull an archetypal card, but I don't feel it's necessary. I want to end with the sun, with the truth. That's the truth I'm feeling right now. This message has concluded. I've said all that needs to be said right now. Thank you for hearing me out. I had a fun time talking about all this stuff. Take care of yourself. Keep your heart open, and let your light shine.